East side, B side, what side are you on?
Well, hello.
Hello. Auf Wiedersehen. No, wait, that's goodbye. Dang it.
Good try. Good
I
try,
should have
though.
just gone with aloha because that means both. As I have been, it has been explained to me by television.
How's it going, Adam?
It is good. I am enjoying what the weather people tell me is spring in Minnesota. It is in the 50s today.
Mm-hmm.
I reacquainted myself with the giant ball of gas in the sky that appeared to show up and give us its blessing, as it does once a month in Minnesota. So I think the groundhogs are all safe for another week. But I have been watching a lot of shows. It is getting to be the crazy time of the year with high schoolers who have events and concerts and graduation and proms and all sorts of things. So it's been a very busy week, but I am very glad to be back here, and I have so much to talk about because I haven't slept much in the last week, and so I've just been watching way more than my fair share of stuff.
New stuff, though, or still old stuff?
Just it's old stuff.
Okay, all right. I watched some new stuff.
I mean, I did watch the ending of The Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed the series. I am. I've gotten to the point now where I am kind of done with the reaction shows on YouTube
Mm-hmm.
because everyone is now, whether it's Marvel or DC or any show that comes out, the way to get the most clicks is to be angry and mean about it.
Yeah, yeah. So wait, is this isn't the final? Like, this is just the season finale, not like finale
They have
finale.
they have not announced another season of The Mandalorian.
Oh, okay.
There are other shows, and at least in my knowledge, and I may be wrong. And please call me out on that on our website, A-Side, B-Side Podcast.square.net site, where you can get all of our information. Call me out on there. But I know that there are other Star Wars shows coming, but I don't think that they have committed that they'll be in season 4 with Pablo Pascal and Baby
Pedro.
Grogu, Pedro. God darn it. I don't know who Pablo Pascal is, but he's getting a lot of love today. Pedro Pascal. Because he's got so many things going on.
Yeah, he does. I mean, like, he's been, the thing is, he has been around for a while, and then it's just all of a sudden he has just blown up, which I'm so happy for him because one, he just genuinely seems like a good guy. Like, he's a very
Mm.
family oriented guy. You don't really ever hear anything bad about him. Like, cast and crew have like really positive things to say about him. And he is a phenomenal actor. So
He
it's
was the
just
only
nice.
good thing in Wonder Woman 1984.
Yeah, he really was. Like, really, he was.
And I think like that movie kind of because it was a pandemic, so there was a lot going on. We were all
Hmm.
busy,
Hmm.
and so we didn't really get to really absorb that movie because it didn't come out of the theaters, and then it
I'm
premiered
glad
like
it didn't come out in the theaters. I would have been mad. That was not a
yeah,
good movie.
it was not good. It was not good. Also, like that was the height, in my opinion, of let's capitalize on 80s nostalgia and just set Wonder Woman 2 in 84 for no reason
Yeah.
whatsoever.
Hmm.
I mean, it was funny because Marvel did the same thing with Captain Marvel, but they put it in like 94.
Hmm.
So both of the major comic book franchises were like, hey, let's try to capitalize on nostalgia. And I don't know that it made either story better. At least Captain Marvel made sense within the bigger hierarchy of the universe that is the MCU
Hmm.
for its timing. It added depth. Uh, DCU has no depth and has been scrapped completely again. So it didn't really matter. They just wanted to put everybody in like really big shoulder pads.
Yeah. Um, Switching gears. Um, I watched some really cool. Okay, so Apple TV. I think I was telling you about it last week. The big, oh goodness, what is it called? The big. Oh, okay. Hold on. Give me a second.
Usually I'm the one that forgets names.
I know. It's the new show, the Big Prize Door, I think it's called, the Big Door Prize. That's it, the Big Door Prize with Chris O'Dowd. It's on Apple TV Plus. So this like machine pops up in the middle of a general store and it gives everybody their their destiny. So a new episode of
Oh
that is,
yeah,
you know,
you were talking. Weren't you talking about this last week?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So, of course, keeping up to date on that. Then also Apple TV released their movie Ghosted with Chris Evans and Anna de Armas. You know Chris Evans.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Do you
and
happen to
Anna de
know
Armas.
Chris Evans? Yeah.
Well,
Um, so it's really it's good. It's Apple TV is like HBO in the fact that when they put something out, they don't miss. They've not put out anything bad, you know, like everything they put out is really pretty good.
mhm.
And Ghosted, it's funny because the premise is this couple goes out on a first date and then she's like an undercover CIA agent and he's like so enchanted with her that to like be romantic, he follows her to Europe or whatever, and then finds out that
Yeah,
she's like this secret CIA agent. And of course, they go on this big, huge adventure. But it's got lots of jokes. It's really funny. Of course, you have to completely, suspend reality, like with any action film, because there's going to be
yeah,
things that are like that is not real. But it is really funny, and just to see Chris Evans in the role where he's not the hero, because he's always, Captain America or
yeah.
whatever.
The Human Torch, or like
Yeah.
he's really made an effort over the last since Endgame to find roles where he doesn't play what you expect. Like
Hmm.
sometimes he's playing the bad guy with a mustache that doesn't
Hmm.
really work, or he's
Right.
playing, well, I'm trying to think what movie that was, but and
Gray Man.
Gray Man, yeah, and it didn't feel. But like I see all the previews for this movie, I'm like, okay, I get what they're doing, but we've done this so many times. Is this not just Kind of True Lies, where they were married, but then like the the person becomes, or the spy who loved me, or even This Means War, when you have two spies and Reese Witherspoon in the middle. And the only thing that they really did differently was they like gender swapped the roles,
And yes,
which is
and he's also not a spy at all.
right. Yeah, but like Jamie Lee Curtis wasn't a
Well, that's
spy
true.
in
That's
True
true. That's
Lies.
true. That's true.
The spy who loved me is like literally the same plot. It's like the guy ghosts her and then she tries to figure out, she finds out he's a spy, but because was that Tina Fey and Amy Poehler?
You're sure? Sure. Yeah.
This no spy who dumped me was was Amy was Anna Faris. No, gosh, it was Kate McKinnon and I'm so good at names, Mila Kunis, but
Okay.
very close. There was a brunette and a blonde, and I was so far off actually. But at least one of them was on SNL. But that was basically the same exact plot where like Mila gets dumped, and then Kate's like, "We're gonna go find this guy," and then they end up in an action adventure. So I looked at it, and I was like, "Really? Like, I don't really feel like we're adding anything new here." But I do love both of them, and I think the probably the most underrated part of the last Bond movie was Anna Darmas as sort of the other secret agent, who's only in the movie for a little bit, doesn't actually factor into the end plot at all, but
Hmm.
she was great.
Yeah, it's a good one. It'll give you some laughs. It's a great little action movie. So if you've got, 90 minutes, I think it is, go ahead and check it out. Another one, it's a series on Netflix. It's Beef with Ali Wong and Steven Yeun.
Yes, I've had some friends who have watched this who are like not really sure what to think of it because it's intense.
It is very intense. You think Ali Wong, you're thinking, oh, this is going to be a comedy, which there's some funny like lines, but it is not a comedy at all. This
It's kind of
is,
like crit, like sort of cringe humor.
yeah, and it'll have you on the edge of your seat and you're like watching, and then the episode ends and you're like, okay, well, I got to watch the next one now because now I need to know what happens.
I
And
mean, that's
that's
kind
how
of
they
brilliant.
just keep you going. Like that's how they just I binged it because I was like, what is this? What in the world is happening? So basically it's a story of two people with road rage that just gets out of control. Like it just goes wild. It just goes to places you would never expect.
Well, I mean, and I guess that's kind of how rage works. Like you start doing something, and now, like I think rage is the flip side of the coin of a lie.
Hmm.
Like if you start telling a lie, you have to keep telling a lie because at some point you have to admit that you were lying. So you just lie on top of lying on top of lying.
Mm-hmm.
And then rage, you're mad, and so you do something, and then then you're mad about getting in trouble for doing the thing, and then you keep getting mad. So it just kind of like snowballs in the same way. I think they're like two different snowballs rolling down a mountain. Never shall they meet.
It's I can't even describe it. It's just intense. Like that really probably is the best word for it. But definitely give it a watch. I think that besides like my typical shows like 911 and Station 19, I think that's all. I think that's the new stuff
Yeah,
I've watched.
I went because I'm stressed and life is a lot, so I went back to Midsummer Murders. Uh, because that's just for some inexplicable reason. I don't know what happened in my childhood besides Murder She Wrote, where murder mysteries are calming to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess that's also why I'm on a podcast that has true crime. But went back to that. But I've been loving diving back into old movies. Like I rewatched Speed this week, which kind of holds up. I mean, it's still got some plot points that are iffy, but like the special effects are good. It is still enjoyable. Galaxy Quest,
Mm-hmm.
another one that absolutely holds up. If you grew up watching Star Trek, and I've heard like rumors they were trying to do like a series and they were going to do like a sequel, and I kind of love that they've never touched it since. Like they just let it be what it was. Because sometimes a movie can be completely whole, and we don't need a sequel. We don't need anything else because it's just going to cheapen what it was. And I think Galaxy Quest is a perfect example.
I love Galaxy Quest. Like I love Galaxy Quest so much.
Like you can put it on at any time and you're gonna have a good time. And yeah, the special effects are not like groundbreaking, but
Mm-hmm.
they also don't take you out of the moment. Like they're good enough that like it does not ruin your enjoyment of the film. Because sometimes special effects are so bad or so distracting that they detract from foreshadowing.
Oh man. So this is episode 133, right?
Mm-hmm. Which is the 133rd original episode, but we have 139 total episodes because we had some repeats of special stuff. So I just realized that myself. So I'm saying it out loud. So maybe I'll remember that we're on official 133, but we're actually on 139.
And that point was for you, really, right?
That just for me. This is for me.
Okay.
But I also just wanted to brag that we've done 139 episodes. I'm doing what every guy does, and I'm just adding six.
Okay. Oh goodness gracious. All right. So it's 133, which means I get to start this week. So we're gonna do a little different. We're not doing a serial killer or a spree killer. This is a one-off.
Okay.
This is the story of Wesley Baker. So Wesley Baker was born March 26th of 1958 in Baltimore, Maryland. Excuse me. So Wesley was the son of a young woman, unfortunately, who was a rape victim and suffered physical abuse during his childhood by his mom, his stepdad, and two other teenage girls. His mom was only like 12 or 13 at the time.
Oh, wow.
And according to various accounts of his mom, attorneys, and 200 pages of official reports and affidavits, he was basically left to like run the streets. And he ended up turning to alcohol and drugs before he was even a teenager. By the age of 15, he had actually become a father. He fathered a baby with a woman who was 28 years old. So, right there. And
that's a big difference when
she
you're
was a
18
drug
and 28.
user. She was a drug user. While again, he himself was also on drugs and alcohol. So, of course, he's in the juvenile justice system because he's running the streets, and that's what's going to happen. He's on drugs and alcohol. And he was actually convicted as an adult for stealing a car when he was just 16 years old and sentenced to prison. He was sentenced to 3 years. He spent most of the next 16 years in prison for convictions for car theft and armed robbery, which plays into the story we're telling today. So on June 6th of 1991, Wesley Baker approaches a woman named Jane Tyson, who was 49. He approaches her in the parking lot of Cantonsville's Westview Mall as she was getting into the car with her grandchildren, a 6-year-old boy and a 4-year-old girl. She had done what most grandparents do, taken her grandbaby shopping. She had taken him shoe shopping. He walks up to her and he places a gun up against her head, to her ear, and he demands her purse. And then, without warning, he fires a shot and kills her on the spot. He fled the scene to where his accomplice was waiting in a Chevy Blazer. A witness was able to follow the Blazer, and they were able to record the license plate number. Then they went back to the mall and they told police. Police later were able to spot Wesley Baker as he fled on foot. The driver was a man named Gregory Lawrence. He was also found and arrested. So when Wesley was spotted and arrested, he still had blood on his shoe, his sock, and his leg. And of course, once they arrested him and they took all of his clothing and everything, they tested that blood, and that was in fact found to be Jane Tyson's blood. They also found Jane Tyson's purse and wallet in the path that he had fled. So it wasn't on his person, but as you know, he's like fleeing on foot. He must have dropped the bag and the wallet.
It is likely. Yeah.
So the firearm, the gun that he used to shoot Jane Tyson, was recovered in the Blazer, the Chevy Blazer that was driven by Gregory Lawrence. Wesley Baker's fingerprints from his right hand were also found on the driver's side of Jane Tyson's vehicle. So, I mean, it's pretty damning for Wesley Baker here. So
perhaps circumstantial, but very clear.
You could say it's circumstantial, but I mean it is. But you got fingerprints. Is that circumstantial?
I mean, no, the fingerprints are, but like the stuff was dropped in the path that he probably ran. That
the gun, I mean, that's a smoking gun right there. Literally. Yeah, literally. So of course he goes to trial, and he's actually convicted by a jury in the circuit court for Harford County on October 26th of 1992 of first-degree murder, robbery with a deadly weapon, use of a handgun in the commission of a felony. In her closing arguments at the trial, Baltimore County State's Attorney Sandra O'Connor told the jury, "Don't forget that Mr. Baker's fingerprints were the only ones found on the window of Miss Tyson's car. Under Maryland law, only a defendant convicted as the killer, like in this case, the shooter, is eligible for the death penalty." 4 days later, after his conviction, he's sentenced to death by the same jury, as well as 40 years in total for the other 2 charges. So the conviction and the sentence were upheld by the Maryland Court of Appeals because he did appeal, because his attorneys appealed under the guise that the death penalty was cruel and unusual punishment. That argument was rejected. The court decided to uphold Wesley Baker's conviction, but there were some doubts that maybe he was he the shooter? Was he not the shooter? Maybe it was this Gregory Lawrence. Gregory Lawrence was actually convicted of the same charges a year earlier, and he received life in prison plus 33 years. So Jane Tyson's 6-year-old grandson, you remember, was with her, and he said that the shooter ran to the driver's side of the car, while the witness said that it was Wesley Baker that was in the passenger seat. So do you believe the 6-year-old witness? Do you believe the adult witness?
And also, depending on angles and what they remember, I mean, the human mind is, by nature, iffy.
Right. So they said in the appeals, one must wonder how it is possible for Baker to hold a gun to Tyson's head and leave fingerprints in the car, especially in light of the fact that the incident only took a matter of moments. The court also said that the evidence that Baker was a shooter was not overwhelming. So he actually received a stay of execution in 2002, days before he was scheduled to die, when Governor Paris N. Glendening imposed a moratorium on the death penalty in the state because he wanted to have a study conducted by Professor Raymond Pastor Norster of the University of Maryland College Park. This study later found that the imposition of the death penalty in Maryland was in fact racially biased. Pastor Norster found that the prosecutors were 2 times more likely to seek the death penalty in cases where African Americans were accused of murder than those of white cases where they were accused of killing white people. Mm-hmm. On November 28th of 2005, William Cardinal Keeler, the Archbishop of Baltimore, actually went to visit Wesley Baker in prison. It was the first time that a cardinal had visited a death row inmate. After meeting with him, Cardinal Keeler made a personal plea, together with 2 other Catholic bishops in Maryland, for the governor to grant clemency and commute the sentence to life imprisonment without parole. Governor Ehrlich lifted the moratorium in 2003 when he was elected. Just prior to the execution, Ehrlich released a statement in which he said that he had decided to deny clemency to Wesley Baker. In the hours before his execution on December 5th of 2005, Wesley Baker was visited at the Metropolitan Transition Center, the Baltimore prison that houses the state's death chamber, by his attorney, Gary W. Christopher, his mother, Dolores Williams, and a social worker. His attorney said he's made his peace. We just talked quietly. There was some joking, laughing, trying to inject a little bit of levity into the situation, but it didn't last long. At 8 p.m. that night, Gary W. Proctor, another attorney for Wesley Baker, shared with protesters outside who were protesting the death penalty that Wesley Baker would in fact be executed. He told them that Baker had been with his mother, his sister, a brother, and a family friend, and they talked about movies and chatted. And then when they were told to leave, he said that Wesley Baker cried. Wesley Baker's last meal consisted of breaded fish, pasta marinara, green beans, orange fruit punch, bread, and milk. And that's according to a spokesperson from the corrections facility. He was executed.
Orange fruit punch? Are we just talking Tang here?
Probably.
I've heard of orange fruit
Probably
punch.
like generic Tang.
Yeah, you're not getting real Tang. You're getting like Tong.
Yeah, Tong.
like slightly misspelled Tang.
Wesley Baker was executed on December 5th of 2005, pronounced dead at 9:18 p.m. Eastern Time. He was executed by lethal injection. He was the 1,002nd execution in the United States. 5 reporters and 4 family members were in attendance, including 2 of Jane Tyson's grandchildren, along with Baltimore County Police Chief Terrence Sheridan. He was not asked if he had a final statement. Again, his attorneys already said that he had made his peace and he had expressed remorse for what he had done. Witnesses say a witness, Jennifer McMenamin, a reporter for the Baltimore Sun, who was one of those reporters that was in, said that Wesley Baker showed little reaction during the doses of his injections. They said that his breathing did become more rapid and loud. And then, of course, with the lethal injection, like they say, there's like gasping because, well, basically you're suffocating.
The body is trying, do what it does.
Yeah.
Survive.
In 2013, Maryland actually abolished the death penalty. On December 31st of 2014, Governor Martin O'Malley commuted the sentences of the 4 final inmates on death row to life in prison, making Wesley Baker the last execution in the state of Maryland.
Wow.
At the time of her death, Jane Tyson was married with 3 children and 6 grandchildren. She was remembered for her generous spirit and fondness for the children and her family and the students at Riverview Elementary in Southwest Baltimore County, where she had worked for 10 years. She was active in her church, which was the St. Lawrence Church in Woodlawn, and she was actually taking classes to become Catholic. At the time of her death, her husband, John, was a principal at Johnny Cake Elementary School. And that is the story of Jane Tyson and Wesley Baker.
I think this is like a philosophical question. Mm-hmm. And God willing, neither of us will ever be faced with this in reality. But philosophically, is it not more punishment to live within the confines of a prison system for the rest of your natural life? Or to be executed.
Yeah, I feel like the true punishment lies in being imprisoned. But then again, you could say, is it though? Because yes, you're not allowed. I mean, yes, there is that element of you're not allowed out in free society. But then again, anything you can get out in free society, you can get in prison,
Yeah.
like
I mean,
whether it's legal or not.
yeah, that's true. And I I wonder if it goes back to a question of, is an eye for an eye truly the most,
Yeah,
justice?
right.
I don't know. Like, I think living for another 40 years in horrible conditions, and maybe that's more punishment than getting an easy out, because maybe if if you're in jail, it would feel like death is a sweet release in some way. So that's just like a philosophical thing that I was always wondering, because everyone fights to not get the death penalty. But if
Right.
your other option is just you're never going to get out,
Which one is worse? Yeah.
which one is better? And I guess that's something that takes each. I mean, everyone faces, you know, what's next in different ways, but
Yeah.
I don't know that I would fight to stay here and be in a horrible position.
Right. Yeah.
Doesn't seem like a win.
Yeah. But there you go. That is the B side.
And this brings us to a moment that I must be honest about. I don't think that I'm very likely destined for the Hall of Fame of anything, but this is my entrance into perhaps the worst segue of all time. If you
Okay.
were on death row and you didn't have a lot of time left, or you had a lot of time left because you got sentenced to life in prison, one of the things that you would probably do is watch a lot of movies
Probably. Read a lot of
and
books. Yeah.
read a lot of books, and also debate on, is this movie good or not. And in the last week, I have recently watched two movies which are generally considered box office bombs, critical failures, unlikely to ever be made again, not going to get any sequels. They passed through the social ether and have gone on to the next life. However, because I am me, I'm going to debate which of these two movies is truly a horrible movie
Oh
and
boy.
which of them is simply underappreciated. And the best part is, both of these movies are available to watch on a streaming service right now. So maybe for the first time in the history of the A side, I'm going to talk about two things that, as soon as you're done listening to this, you can go watch them if you have
Yay.
Amazon Prime or Netflix, which are two of the more used streaming services in the world. As I mentioned, I have been watching a lot of movies in the last week and rewatching things, but I've also been trying to force myself to check some things off the bucket list of shows I need to watch.
Hmm.
And for some reason, in the last year and a half, it has been hard for me to get to the movie theater. We talked last week where I finally got to see Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves in the theater, and it's the
Yes.
first movie I've gone to in almost a year. I absolutely loved it. It was great. I'm glad I went. I'm glad I saw it within the theater atmosphere, because that was a fun time. There's clearly a bunch of other like-minded nerds with me that enjoyed it as well, laughing at weird little jokes on the side that you only get if you play D&D regularly. It was a great time. Shared experience. This week, I've just been sitting at home with my dog, who, despite everything that I believe, I don't think she knows much English. So she's not enjoying the movies the same way that I, and we certainly can't debate. So as I found myself watching a film that I find comforting, but I know is routinely thought of as a complete failure, and then literally forcing myself to finish another movie that came out more recently, but was a critical success, or a more commercial success, if not a critical success. So today we will look at two movies, one on Amazon Prime, one on Netflix, and
Okay.
debate which is good and which is crap,
Okay.
which is rewatchable and which is crap. Because I will admit that neither of these are good movies. First, let's start with my favorite of the two, Foreshadow. In 2017, the spiritual successor to The Fifth Element, created by the same uh, director and creator Luke Besson, and using a lot of the same style and imagery and space adventure. Came out, and I remember seeing the preview for this movie, getting very excited. It was called Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. It feels very much like The Fifth Element. It's a space adventure. There are aliens and creatures galore. There's beautiful people doing all sorts of daring do. It's got a cast that has way too many people in it. When you could have uh, Ethan Ethan Hawke is a tiny bit part, when you've got Rihanna having one of her probably biggest acting roles that she's had as supporting characters in a movie with just really beautiful people. And the one thing about Luke Besson's movies, especially The Fifth Element, is where it is about war and potentially the destruction of all humankind. It's a really visually appealing movie. Bright colors. You've got a lot of beautiful people. Mila Jovanovic had not been in any movies. She had not acted before. She was a model, and she
Mm-hmm.
was cast for her look as the perfect being. Makes Fifth Element work. Luke Besson attempted to recreate this feeling with Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets, which is based off of a French science fiction comic called Valerian and Lorelei. And I wonder if it would have been better if they had kept that dichotomy in the naming title to make it feel more like the comic, and that this is really the story of two secret agents, two soldiers, two partners,
Mm-hmm.
and how they're dealing with a situation. Because when you say it's a Valerian in the City of a Thousand Planets, it gets really male centric, that we don't even have the female who is his equal in the entire script, and through most of the film is proven to be so, if not superior, in the title. That was a marketing misstep.
Mm-hmm.
But the movie tells the story of two space secret agents, Valerian and Lorelei, who are tasked with saving Alpha, which is a space station where all these different species come together across the universe. Imagine if the the International Space Station was up there, but for thousands of years. So we just kept adding stuff onto it. And it becomes basically a planet in and of itself. That has no actual land or gravity. It's just all these ships connecting and building onto each other, becoming this sort of space station that in and of itself is a planet. The critical response to Valerian, the City of a Thousand Planets, was at best mixed.
Mm-hmm.
Rotten Tomatoes gave the film a 47% approval rating based on 347 critical reviews. The average rating of 5.5 out of 10. That's not even a D, folks, because a D is 6 out of 10, as it
Mm-hmm.
was explained to me when I got a D in college. You have to get at least 60% to pass the class, and I did, even though I probably didn't deserve it. The site's critical consensus says that Valerian, the City of a Thousand Planets, uses sheer kinetic energy and visual thrills to overcome its somewhat scattered plot and inconsistent characters. Is that a fair critical response? Absolutely. But it's a space drama. They don't we're willing suspension of disbelief. Really beautiful people. Cara Delevingne plays Lorelei, and she is one of the most beautiful people on earth, as Jovanovic was in The Fifth Element. It makes sense.
Right.
She gets to do a lot more secret agenty stuff and has a lot more character than Mila ever got in The Fifth Element, even though it's a great character overall, and gets to wear clothes, which was definitely lacking in The Fifth Element. Metacritic gave the film a score of 51 out of 100, which is also, as they call, mixed or average reviews. But let's be honest, folks, that's less than a D. It also didn't make much money. It recouped its operating budget of over $200 million, but only by a few million, which probably didn't cover any of the marketing cost or the extra costs that come with a major blockbuster film. And it is considered a blockbuster failure. It in and out of theaters. It is not something that a lot of people know. Those who have seen it, in my opinion, have enjoyed it, and I have rewatched it on multiple occasions. The entire film, which I cannot say for today's other entry in which is rewatchable and which is crap. And this is a movie that I have literally started at least 7 times and didn't get
Wow.
10 minutes in. And this week, I went full like Clockwork Orange, gluing my eyelids back, and said, I have to finish this movie because I do love the Island of Misfit Toys. I love movies that are not critical successes. I love movies that people may find problem with because I think in most movies, I think to this day there has been one movie in the 139 episodes of the A Side B Side podcast that I have said, don't go watch this movie. And I believe that was Max Payne, starring Mark Wahlberg, based on a video game, which is an absolute horrible movie. Everyone else I can find something redeeming about. So I told myself, I'm gonna give it a chance. I'm gonna find something redeemable about this movie. And I had to watch it in 35-minute increments.
Yikes.
I had to watch 35 minutes, take a mental break because I was so bored, and then come back and watch another 35 minutes. And I wanted it to work.
Yikes.
And everything was set up that it should have worked because you know what? Sony has kind of started figuring out superhero movies. The Spider-Man movies with Tom Holland.
Oh, those are so good.
So good. Even Venom and Venom 2 worked. Were they perfect films? No, but they were enjoyable and you could rewatch them and had characters that you cared about.
Right.
And you didn't feel like you needed a mental break halfway through where you're just like, I'm going to watch YouTube for 5 seconds so I can see somebody yell about the Mandalorian, which seems like a break from the boring monotony of this film. And I have another like feeling about one common thread between this and another DC movie where it didn't work. I'm wondering if this individual might be the poison pill.
Oh,
but I don't want to lay it all on their feet. So we are talking about 2022's Morbius, starring Jared Leto. A story that seemed like it had a lot of the same elements.
Potential.
It does. You've got vampires. You've got this sort of the Sony universe is kind of becoming the anti-hero universe with Venom. And so, like, is Morbius a bad guy? Is he not a bad guy? Like, we're going to play with that dynamic. And they completely missed the plot. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film has an approval rating of 27%.
Ugh.
27. That is like the reverse, like 73%. Or 73% would be a C. So we are now like, are we at H? I don't know. We're so far past F that we're at 27%.
Yeah.
Its average rating is 4.1 out of 10. The site's critical consensus really could have been ripped out of my brain after this weekend. It says, muddled and dull.
Oof.
Morbius misses the opportunity to sink its teeth into the conflicted character at its center, in settling instead for a generic origin story. Metacritic gave the film a score of 38 out of 100, saying it is generally unfavorable reviews. Audience scores weren't much better. It did get 62% because people just love comic book movies and wanted it to be a thing on Rotten Tomatoes. And it has a score of 6.4 out of 10 on IMDb, which makes absolutely no sense to me. Jared Leto, you would think, is a very talented actor. To inhabit the role of a doctor who is brilliant, but whose body is betraying him and is trying to find a cure, only to find that perhaps the cure in this case is worse than the disease. It has echoes of Frankenstein, of monster films, of is truly, are we the monster ourselves, or is it the medicine, or the cure that the steps we take to try to find a cure? All of that should be gold. Like, I know that when this movie was first talked about, you've got a former Oscar nominee, and he might even be an Oscar winner if I'm trying to remember. People were like, this could be a thing. This could be the comic book movie.
I think he's a winner from
I think he's like
the Dallas Buyers Club. I think
I think I know he got nominated. I think he won. So he's like, okay, like this could work. I mean, this man played a drug addict, and now he's going to play a vampire. Feels kind of on point. However, it completely misses the the plot. You don't care. Somehow they made two characters who are struggling to survive, where Jared Leto and then Matt Smith, who I don't know his agent. I don't believe in physical violence, but I'd like to slap his agent because somehow he has made the strangest career decisions since leaving Doctor Who, where you thought like, okay, this guy's got a chance to like have a movie career. And it's just been really weird. It's been one misstep after another. Like, evidently, he was in the Star Wars movie, then he got cut from it because it was so bad. I think he was supposed to be in The Last Jedi or
Ooh.
The Rise of Skywalker, one of the two, and like it was rumored that like he never showed up. Like at one point, everybody thought he was gonna be like the big bad, like he was gonna be Palpatine returned or something, and like just wasn't in the movie anymore, and no one talks about it. This movie turns into a character play on, and I love the idea of you have two people that can be both sides of this, different sides of the same thing. The strangers on a train, you know in Us there are two, you're driving a carriage, there are two horses in front. There is the light horse and the dark horse, the good and the bad, and they're pulling in directions, and which one you let lead you chooses your path. So you've got these two characters that are both trying to survive, find this potentially cure that actually turns into a curse, and they go different ways about it. That feels like it has a lot of almost Shakespearean, palpable opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And instead, it's boring and it turns into them flying around the city fighting all the time. And then it was like, oh, well, there's a female involved that one of them likes, so we're going to put her in danger. Like she's, the princess that needs to be rescued. And the entire time, while Jared Leto and Matt Smith are flying around using really just non-convincing special effects to, are they ghosts? Are they apparitions? Are they vampires? They're flying, but they're also like disapparating, going around and killing people like the poor guy selling a newspaper. And as an audience member, you just don't care. You don't really care who wins.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're just kind of waiting for it to play out. By trying to make it A versus B, a good versus bad, a binary situation, you lost any of the vagueness and gray area that the movie could have become.
Yeah.
And instead it becomes a slog where by the end, when they've got the little cliffhanger that seems like it's setting up the Sinister Six in the Sony Marvel universe, and they drop in, a character from another Sony Spider-Man movie, you just don't care because you're glad that he's going to jail, because maybe that means that this movie is going to be out. The crazy part is Morbius had a budget of $105 million, and worldwide it grossed $283 million. Financially, I don't know, if I spend $1 and you give me almost $3 in return, I feel like that's a win.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow Sony has not talked about making another one. They've kind of let it die out. There's not been a big push for it on DVD or even on the streaming services. In fact, Disney Plus just added all the Spider-Man movies that are Sony movies to Disney Plus, but they didn't add Morbius. It is a film that will probably never be touched again, and it makes me terrified when I read this week's news that they're doing Kraven the Hunter, and it's going to be the first R-rated, DC movie,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not going to be able to figure out how to do that either. I don't know. Like Sony felt like they were learning something from their collaborations with Marvel, and they clearly have lost the plot completely.
I feel like it's the group project where, like Sony and Marvel were in this group project, and you think that everybody's contributing because you get this success like Spider-Man, but it really was probably Marvel doing all the work, and Sony was like, yeah, I helped.
And like, I think like even more so, it was And this is again my personal opinion. I have no inside knowledge about the production values of Marvel versus DC because I live in a studio apartment in Minnesota. But it feels like Marvel was more likely saying, yeah, let's not do that. Because every time that Sony came up with an idea, they'd have to be like, oh, that's we're brainstorming. That's cool. There's no bad ideas here, but we're not going to do that. And without somebody in the room saying, yeah, let's not, they just did.
Yeah.
It drives me nuts because Valerian in the City of a Thousand Planets is a movie that I have rewatched many times and enjoyed every time. It is bright. It is fun. Is it a perfect movie? No. Is it a good movie? Probably not, but it's watchable. And it still made money. Granted, it only made about $16 million, which is like if I handed you $1 and gave me $1.16, I would be happy for the 16 cents, but I'm probably not going to be that enthused. So neither of them is getting a sequel. But if you have to sit down tonight, if you're listening to the A-Side, B-Side podcast today on A-Side, B-Side podcast.square.site, which is our website, which is all of our links to the various formats. And you said, what am I going to watch tonight? Don't pick Morbius.
Ugh.
Stay away from Netflix. Go to Amazon Prime. And if you've never seen Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets, or as it should be called, Valerian and Lorelei, I guarantee you, of the two, you will enjoy that one and you will turn the other one off.
I can't believe that you've had to watch that in 35-minute increments.
I had to take breaks. It was literally, I was falling asleep. I don't sleep. I have insomnia.
Well,
and this
now you
movie,
know what to put on if you.
I guess I just put on Morbius and I'll go to sleep. I'll just be like, you know what? Night terrors are better than this. At least they have a cohesive plot. They're kind of scary. I mean, they could have made it a horror film. If you look at Werewolf by Night, the one shot that came out on Disney Plus last fall from Marvel about a werewolf, that movie had more, like, it embraced the classic horror vibe. Morbius could have done that. It didn't do that.
Wow.
It didn't really have any idea what it was doing. And so it did a lot of it bad and nothing well. And so for the second time in the history of the A-Side, don't watch this movie.
Yikes.
I tried. I tried to give it a shot. I really did.
Well, not that I was planning to watch it because, like, I really wanted to when they first started talking about it. And then the previews, I was like, this does not look great. And then now with your recommendation, because you're kind of like me, like, you can put a movie on and you can pretty much watch anything. So if you're saying don't watch it, yikes.
Like I couldn't watch it. I literally had to take it in bite-sized pieces because I told myself I must watch this entire film because maybe there's something redeeming. Maybe the second act makes sense. Maybe suddenly I care about the characters. Maybe the special effects aren't oddly juvenile. But no, it never actually got
there. All right. Well, there you go. So is that the A-Side?
Oh, and well, and to hit on the point I mentioned earlier, Jared Leto was also tried to play a very bad version of Joker in the original Suicide Squad movie, and then they tried to bring him into Justice League, and all three of those didn't work. So if I'm not saying it's Jared Leto's fault, but if I'm Jared Leto, I might be like, you know what?
No more superhero movies.
Yeah, I'll just go win some Oscars doing other stuff.
Yeah,
because the superhero movie stuff is not working. Or can we get like another 30 Seconds to Mars album anytime?
Ooh, yeah. There you go.
Like pour all that Morbius pain into some alt rock because that would be better than the movie.
Oh, all right. So is that the A-Side?
That is the A-Side. And of course, as always, you can check out our links if I remember to send them to Brooke on our website. So go to A-Side, B-Side podcast.square.site. You can follow us on all of the social medias. We are on every platform that you can imagine. So follow us on there, like and share. If you want to yell at me because you are the one Morbius and/or Jared Leto fan, or maybe you related to Matt Smith, or you're his agent and you want to slap me, that's fine. Time and place. 10 spaces, we're good. Also, we got all of our merchandise on there. You can buy Brooke coffee because she has to edit all of this together and make it sound coherent when I don't always use, sentences that have predicates and subjects together at all. She's got to figure that out sometime. So check that all out on our website, A-Side, B-Side podcast.square.site. Brooke, did I forget?
No, you got it. You nailed it. There you go. That has been, episode 133. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you, Brooke.